Eric Blake, how are you today?
Doing just fine.
I wanted to talk to you about the forecasts, of course.
Sure, I could talk a little bit about
Okay. Eric Blake, National Hurricane Center. Um, Forecasts, of course, we're going to be seeing some extended warnings where time gives people more time to evacuate. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
that. Sure, we're extending the watches and warnings. The hurricane watches, the hurricane and tropical storm watches will be extended 12 hours to 48 hours. The warnings will be extended 12 hours as well to 36 hours in advance. It's primarily due to advances in forecasting technology. The forecast errors have gotten so low over the last decade or so that we feel confident enough about giving people the extra 12 hours of notice.
Couldn't that come back to, say, bite us in the butt if we had a storm that was not so cooperative when it came to forecasts?
That's always a danger, even with the shorter term warnings, but the forecasts are so much better in general than they were even 10 or 15 years ago that we've done some internal studies and looked, and we don't think there's going to be any significant change to the areas that are warned than used to be.
Okay, so we're still going to be, of course, still be using the zone of error, and people don't need to focus on that skinny black line. How many times have we told them, but they do. But with the evacuations giving an extra 12 hours, do you think people are going to heed these?
I hope so, and I hope that by us trying to give people extra 12 hours and maybe more daylight time to prepare, that the warnings will be taken seriously. The track areas slowly have been coming down and down. It's really one of the great success stories. People are still going to have to evacuate more than the hurricane comes, but it's part of living on the Gulf and East Coast.
Yeah, living in paradise, as Bill Reed says.
Indeed.
The forecasts. How can you explain to us how the forecasts have been getting better over the last few years?
It's primarily due to the computer models. All these models that can really integrate data from across the globe, and we've been getting better and better data sources, and slowly the models, kind of the combination of all the models together is really our first guess. Then we can kind of tweak it based upon what we're seeing in the models, but the models are primarily the reason why. We're just getting a better handle on the initial representation, what the storm looks like now, and it's really one of the big success stories of the last 20 years.
Right, and some people may say that, and I know this isn't true on my behalf, but some people say that National Hurricane Center forecasters use a consensus of the models, that they're not actually forecasting. Could you go through basically what is done during a forecast for a tropical cyclone?
Sure. Well, I mean, a consensus is kind of a first guess. Uh, Everyone has something they want to start from, and usually a consensus of the models is a first guess. And honestly, sometimes a consensus is really hard to beat. Consensus has a way of diminishing each other's random errors, such that the random errors from Model A will be canceled out by the random errors in Model B. But what the hurricane specialist will do, um, we'll look at the fields of the atmosphere, various steering levels, and really diagnose what they think is the best one, is the best model, which may be handling it the best. Sometimes we'll use a combination of a few of the models, leave one out. But a lot of times the consensus is a first guess, and then we'll tweak it based upon what we see. Maybe we're seeing the ridge not changing quite the same way, and we don't think the storm is going to move like the model thinks. Sometimes the model, the storm initial representation, what the storm looks like. Occasionally you'll see these big, powerful major hurricanes that don't have much of a representation. They're not very deep in the atmosphere, in the model atmosphere, but we know they're deep in the real atmosphere. So we can kind of integrate in our head how we think it'll be different from the model forecasts. A case of that was Hurricane Ike. Now knowing what we know now about Ike, I think we would have changed the forecast a little south of Florida, but we kind of learned from that example.
Right, and people, they see hurricanes out there like Ike and approaching the Bahamas, and there's that big scare. But we saw the media kick into gear, but did you? I mean, the Hurricane Center's in Miami. Did you guys actually see the public kick into gear to prepare for the possibility of Ike affecting South Florida?
Um, You know, it was only a short amount of time that the cone was over Florida, but it only takes a kind of a small amount of time for people to get concerned. We were getting a strengthening hurricane, and the model guys was suggesting a threat. You know, once the day 4 and day 5 positions are over land, that usually will set some actions into motion.
Right, and the concern is this year that a lot of the public may not heed some of the concerns 4 and 5 days out. They may just wait, and the idea is to have that plan, be
Well,
prepared.
yeah, everyone's got their own special needs. I mean, some people they can execute their hurricane plan in 36 to 48 hours, but sometimes people have to go. You know, they have property in the Keys that they have to. You know, for South Florida,
Right.
for instance, they have property in the Keys that they have to handle, and they make those decisions days in advance. And I think the public knows that those 4 and 5 day forecasts have a lot larger error um, than than the shorter term forecasts, and you know they're subject to large changes. But what people may not know is that those 4 and 5 day forecasts, they're as good as their 2 and 3 day forecasts from 15, 20 years ago. So there's been some great strides.
All right. Okay, so forecasting, we're seeing great things coming out of the forecasting at the Hurricane Center. Satellites, of course. Spoke with Jack Bevan with satellite issues, and we've got some newer satellites out there that'll be coming online over the years, and new ones to be launched. Great tools for the Hurricane Center. Loss of QuickScat, of course, out over the open ocean for you, but was there any effect of loss of QuickScat closer to land?
Well, QuickScat went out at the end of last year, and we didn't really have any storms. It went out so late in the hurricane season that it really didn't affect the operations, and we don't really foresee a huge impact. It's going to hurt some for storms out to sea, but the storms closer to land will have reconnaissance and more regular. And we've got a couple other satellites. The ASCAT satellite covers some of the difference between. It does help alleviate some of the pain from losing QuickScat. There's other scatterometers out there that we can sort of use as band-aids to fix the QuickScat.
Okay, well, Eric, final word to my listeners?
Final word, well, it's almost hurricane season, and it's time to be prepared, get those hurricane plans. The seasonal hurricane forecast comes out in May, and whatever the case may be, it looks like it's going to be more active than last year.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you very much.